Hey everyone, welcome to the show. On behalf of Disciple a City, I'm Todd Carlton, and this is the Toddcast. This is the place to hear incredible testimonies and stories of how Jesus became real, people's ups and downs, and what led them to walk in freedom in Christ. Friends, Disciple a City exists to equip Christians to live a kingdom culture lifestyle, become disciple-making disciples, and share the gospel everywhere they go. In 2025, we are partnering with over 200 churches and organizations in 25 different cities across Canada to see 100,000 Canadians hear the gospel. For more information on this or how you can be involved, go to our website at discipleacity.ca and click on the 100K Harvest. Don't forget to hit follow on whatever platform you're listening and follow us along on Instagram at the Toddcast_DAC. And of course, download the United Hive app to share your testimonies all over the world. Friends, we have another musical guest joining us today. She is from the state of Texas, released her first single in 2023, 3 singles in 2024, and her latest release is coming out on February 7th of this year. She also has an online music school, plays multiple instruments, and sings in 2 languages. Please welcome Christian country recording artist, Jillian Warman.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. It is nice to meet you.
And it is so nice to meet you as well, virtually.
Virtually, of course. Yeah. How are things in Texas today?
It's been good. It's been humid. We're still waiting for winter, and it never shows up. So it's been kind of warm and sticky, but that's Texas for you. I love it. It definitely feels like home at this point. I've lived here long enough. So,
well, here I can tell you at the Toddcast Studios, it was minus 19 today. That's Celsius, and
wow,
we have about 1.5 feet, 2 feet of snow.
Oh my goodness! I don't know if I would want that. I kind of want something in the middle. Just want to feel the seasons change. But yeah, Texas, we joke that it's like summer, more summer, less summer. Like it's just kind of, and as you can tell, I have 2 dogs. So if you hear or see them, that's what's going on. So I promise they're friends, but they play a lot. And if I hear them a little too much, they might get themselves put in another room.
No problem. Yeah. And we have, like I was telling you in the green room there, we have Roxy, our resident German Shepherd. We refer to her as the demon hunter.
Oh, okay.
She's a super nice dog, loves everybody.
Uh-huh.
Shepherds are kind of intimidating to some people, but she's really super nice. But there's been a couple instances where she's not been too fond of some people. Turns out, they needed freedom.
Oh, okay. So she's got discernment. Okay.
She's got discernment, the dog of discernment.
It's good to have her around then.
It is.
I can see why you keep her in the green room.
Well, this is exciting. A lot of stuff for you, a lot of talent in your music, and we absolutely love to talk about your music and all that for sure. But can you just, born and raised in Texas? Can you give us a little background? Were you born and raised in Texas, in the church, and all that?
Born in Texas, but I am an Army brat. And so I didn't stay in Texas very long till my dad was stationed somewhere else. And so I actually moved every couple of years. Sometimes that would only be a year in some place. And so, yeah, I started in Texas. I actually consider Oregon my home because my mom and extended family are all from Oregon, and we moved all the time. And so my mom made sure that we spent summers in Oregon, all growing up. And so it's funny to me because I lived a lot of places, but Oregon was my constant. And honestly, my safe place. And so, I wasn't really raised in any one place, but if I could pinpoint anywhere that feels 100% like home, that would be Oregon. But I was raised in the church, very, very grateful for that. I went to a lot of different types of churches growing up. My dad is Lutheran, born and raised Lutheran. My mom, more Assemblies of God, full gospel. And when they met, they both obviously loved the Lord, but very different very different backgrounds in the church. So we met in the middle with Southern Baptist. So I went to many Baptist churches growing up, which I'm very grateful for because I learned the word in Baptist Sunday school. You memorize lots of scripture. And so from a very young age, I was, memorizing chapters and chapters of the Bible. And I'm so grateful for that. But yes, raised in the church. So very thankful that from a very young age, I had, like I said, scriptures ingrained in me, and I got to see just what the Lord can do and who He is and how much He loves us. And not to say that I, didn't have my times where I struggled or, became somewhat of a renegade, but, when you're from your earliest memories, that the Lord loves you and He has saved you. I feel like that definitely brings you back. So it's my North Star. But yes, raised in the church and raised all over.
Yeah. So what is that like? Because that's more prominent in the U.S. than it would be in Canada. I mean, we obviously
Right.
have military too, but not to the extent that you guys do. So what's that like? How hard is that as a kid to every couple of years you just establish friends in a school and whatnot? And how is that?
It's really hard. I mean, it's an adventure. I look at my life and I think about how many places that I've gotten to live and all these people that I've gotten to meet, and even through the challenges, how it grew me, to be very bold. And I'm an only child, and so I didn't have siblings to like be the new kid with me, and so it made me like force myself to be comfortable basically in any situation. And you also knew you only have a limited amount of time to make friends and to make it feel like home. And rather than shrink back and, and not be bold because I knew I would move again, I would actually look at it as a challenge. Like, how can I, embrace this new life for the time that I have it? But it doesn't mean that it wasn't very hard. Many tears shed with each move, even though I knew it was coming. It was really hard, especially as you get older. When you're younger, it's still difficult, but you can assimilate pretty quickly when when you move. So like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, that kind of thing. But when you're in middle school and high school, it's a little bit harder. And friend groups are so established, when you move to a new place, and a lot of people have lived there their whole life, kind of thing. And you're the new person. But I feel like music, honestly, was such a helpful tool to basically not just meet people, but just kind of like it was like my friend, going into new situations. I knew that I had music, and that would basically, help me find groups and help me find people that were like-minded. And so music honestly became really helpful. But yes, being an Army kid is an incredible life on one hand, but there is I definitely struggled with anxiety and growing up, and there were times that it was harder than others. But I wouldn't trade it because I feel like I said, it's made me very bold. And I have the ability to walk into any room and make it home. And I believe that being an Army kid really strengthened me in that area. So I'm very grateful for my upbringing.
So talking about music, were your parents musical? Was music became important to you young just because you discovered it, or what's the background on that for you?
It's funny because I am definitely the oddball in the family. My parents are not musicians. There really aren't any musicians I mean, there are some littles coming up and learning some music now, but when I came along, there was like no musicians in my family. And my parents actually never thought of putting me in lessons or anything. They tried me, in the typical stuff, soccer and things like that, which I was not very good at. But as far as music goes, that was something that actually came from me. And I believe it was the Lord putting it in my heart, putting that desire in my heart. I just, at the age of 4, I had seen a pianist on TV, and I thought I have to do that. I have to do that. And so I started asking for a piano, and my parents were like, okay, she's 4. Maybe she just has stars in her eyes. She just saw someone play piano. Maybe this isn't serious. Because like I said, with them not being musicians, they didn't really migrate towards that for me. And then a year later, I was still asking for a piano, and they knew that, with my personality, I'm the kind that I'm very serious about things, and I don't dabble. I really stick with things, and I work very hard, and they could already tell that even at a young age. So they said, well, it couldn't hurt. And so they thought, well, piano's just good for kids anyway. And so they got me enrolled, and it was honestly love at first sight. And I never looked back. Once I started piano, it was about every 2 years that I would start wanting to add another instrument, not exchange one, but add another one, and just keep adding it. And so every time I would work extremely hard, and my parents saw that, and so they would support it. And yeah, so it was an initiative that came from my heart, but I'm very grateful that I have a family that supported it. And so they may have not understood it, but they've actually come to know quite a bit about music since they have a very musical daughter. So I feel like it's been kind of an adventure for them, because they've gotten to go, to all these different places and see me perform, and be immersed in the music world. And they wouldn't have done that, had they not had musical daughters. So I feel like I've gotten to kind of take them along for the ride. So, but I guess that's sometimes, it's a God thing. It wasn't like, oh yeah, they were musicians and then I, became a musician. It wasn't like that at all. But I love being the oddball in the family. I think it was, the Lord has a sense of humor. He's like, I'm just going to drop a musical child right in this family.
That's actually amazing, because usually, or maybe not usually, but oftentimes, right, it's people grow up with the music,
yes.
and it just becomes natural. So that's,
yes,
and you
that
remember that that must have been very impactful for you to remember that at 4 years old, to have that memory.
Yeah, it was, I feel like, the verse, commit to the Lord, the desire, like commit to the Lord everything that you do, and he will give you the desires of your heart. And I feel like he puts desires in our hearts. And as a kid, like that, I guess that's when you, like, there's no distractions, when you're 4, and when you're 5, like, that you're not overthinking it. Oh, is that me? As adults, we're like, wait, was that something that I wanted, or does that God want that? When you're a kid, you don't overthink it. It's like, I feel like God put that desire in my heart. I need to do music. I need to play music. And I didn't question it. It was like, okay. And so, yes, I remember, getting my first piano. We found like this lady just basically giving away an upright that she wasn't using. It was, collecting dust. And my parents were like, well, that's a good starter piano. We'll go with that one. I remember they were in like the living room talking to her, and I walked back and found the piano in the back room. And I just remember, like, I just knew, like, I get chills thinking about it. Like, I just remember seeing the piano, sitting down and touching the keys. I had no idea what to do on them yet, but I just felt like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And yeah, I'm very grateful that, like I said, I have a family that supported that, and they were like, okay, if you want to do this, let's do it. And my mom found a teacher who was, wonderful, getting me started. And a lot of teachers won't start students as young as 5, so she had to really shop around, but she found a teacher who was like, okay, I'll give it a shot, and we'll see how she does. And I could already read by then, and the teacher was like, okay, if she can read, then I guess let's try it out. And so yeah, I'm so grateful, because I mean, obviously I would love the Lord and I'd be serving him either way, but I don't know who I'd be in, like, as a whole without music in my life. So it's kind of funny to think about, but I'm very grateful for it.
You could read music at 5? Is that what you mean?
Oh, no, I could read. Yeah, just
okay.
read. So yeah, she didn't want to take students that like couldn't, like, even though obviously she had to teach me to read music, but a lot of teachers are they're very careful, I'll put it that way, cautious about taking students that are pretty young. And so, yeah, she wanted to, I think she felt like if I had the focus, I was already reading proficiently and things like that. I was like, okay, well, then I can teach you to read music, and it won't be such a big leap. So I guess as a music teacher now, I understand where she's coming from. It is easier, if a student could already do that. So
yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Earlier you mentioned, and most people do, sure, right? Because you're navigating as a teen and stuff, but you mentioned where you had your moments in faith, and you used the word renegade. And I don't know, maybe just threw that out there, but can you talk about that? Like a phase where you were sort of searching or drifted, or what did you mean by that?
I feel like I'm, like I said, so incredibly grateful that I was raised in the church, but obviously there's a lot of pressures coming from outside of that, and I definitely, had my fair share. And so there are times where you I don't know, you always think the grass is greener on the other side. So, there were times definitely in, middle school, and, in high school and in college as well, where, it's like, the enemy would sit on my shoulder and be like, well, like, you don't really want to be that different from other people, right? Like, that's kind of getting old, right? And put that pressure on me. And, I would go through phases, whether it was just feeling like, man, this is so hard, like this is so hard being a Christian. It'd be so much easier if I was, maybe a Christian, but like, not, didn't have so many lines, things like that. And a lot of times it was just more temptation and, more of a headspace. But there was definitely a time, I would say more in college where, I, was like, I'm just so sick of being different. And I wouldn't say that like, I was like, in any way turn my back on my faith or anything like that. But, I definitely wanted to feel, like I said, I moved around a lot. And so having to constantly like try to fit in, every single time you move. And then of course, being a believer and having that value system, Christianity, it's not for sissies, Christianity, it's tough stuff, like and I, always had, obviously family to lean on and keep me strong in that way. But I just remember, going through a time in college and being like, I love the Lord, but like, I kind of want to feel normal, in my head, it's like the enemy will make you feel like that. Like, oh, like, why don't you just, fit in a little bit more? And I remember, going through, I don't know, it's probably a couple years and, feeling like I was literally split in two because my spirit, was like, what are you doing? Like the Holy Spirit is so gentle with conviction. The Lord does not walk around with a giant fly swatter. He is so gentle. And, I felt like the Lord was constantly tugging on my heart. And like I said, in my head, I was like, well, I love the Lord, but, I want to do these things too. And the Lord was, just tugging on my heart. And it was, honestly making me feel like I was torn into, because, my head was going one where my spirit was, anchored in another way. And I just remember, towards the end of that season, like, honestly, just desiring peace so much again and wanting to just like, I finally saw, once and for all that the grass is not greener on the other side, that Christianity, it is hard, and being, having a value system that, aligns with the Bible, it is incredibly hard. But the peace that you receive when you're walking in your calling and you're living a life worthy of your calling, there is nothing that outside of that can offer that equals that peace. And I just remember the Lord, like, just laying on my heart, like, I miss you. Like, I miss you. Like, where have you gone? Makes me think in the Garden of Eden, the Lord knew where Adam and Eve were, but he said, where are you? And I felt like the Lord was just, speaking that to me and, like, where are you? Like, where have you gone? I miss you. Let my love draw you back. And I remember, just being like, I'm going to lay all of this down. Like, nothing that I found equals what I have found in the Lord. Like, nothing. The enemy will, especially as like, a church kid all of my life, the enemy had fed me lies. Like, you've missed out on all these things. And, like there's all this green grass on the other side. And, it's like the realization is everything you find in the Lord is better. Everything. And so I remember, like, just full on surrendering and saying, Lord, I want all that you have for me. And I'm tired of, like, I'm tired of being counterfeit. I'm tired of trying to chase, the Bible says you cannot, one man cannot serve two masters. I'm tired of running and trying to run in opposite directions, which you can't actually do. And I remember fasting. I remember getting to the end of that season and just being like, I'm going to fast and I'm going to give it all. And I want you to speak to me. And it was incredible because I fasted, in a particular way, fasted certain things for a week. And some food as well. So, which I love food. So that was, incredibly difficult. And so I remember, like, just wanting to feel again and wanting to just be at his feet and to have nothing holding me back. And, I so believe in fasting. I believe that like, the Lord, he speaks to us all the time, but he shouts when we fast. Like, he is like so clear, like the airwaves are clear when we fast. And so I remember fasting for a week, and honestly, like, I took a week off from work and I just literally was like, I got away and just spent time with the Lord. And, I didn't see any friends. I didn't, like I said, I took time off from work. I basically unplugged, phone was off, like just, I met with God. And it was, a turning point for me. Obviously, like after that experience, like I never turned back. I was like, this is where I want to be, at his feet, as Mary was, at Jesus' feet. Is like, I realized once and for all, like the enemy, he could try to tempt me now and be like, I don't, there's nothing you could offer me. There's nothing you could offer me that equals the peace and the love of Jesus and the fulfillment of walking in his will. And so, I feel like we've all gone through those struggles, and we've all, had distractions and temptations, and we've had our seasons where it's been difficult, whether we've had doubts and, whatever. I love, reading the Psalms, because I feel like, we're so where David was. He had his doubts, he had his confusion, he had his anger issues, he had his downfalls, but he always came back to the saving love of God. And he knew, when it was all said and done, like no one is like my God, like his love endures forever. I mean, he always reminds us of that. And so I remember just the Lord speaking to me through his word during that time, and just, it felt like a homecoming is the best way that I can explain it. And, it felt like, when the Lord had been like, I miss you, I'm drawing you back. So when I finally surrendered, it just felt like I came home. And, my life has never been the same. And I feel like I was, a very strong believer before that season, and I'm a very strong believer now, but it's different, because it's like, it's different when you've left and you come home. There is a different appreciation that is there. And it's not like, oh, well, I've just always been in this. It's like, no, I experienced what it's like to try to run the other way. And I know without a shadow of doubt, with my entire being, from the bottom of my heart, that, this is the most fulfilling life that I can live, which is right at the feet of Jesus.
And maybe that's when a moment where it became really personal for you, right? Like you're,
Yes.
Believers as a family, and now,
Mm-hmm.
like you say, it became really personal.
Yes, it became very personal, very real. And I believe that, like, the Lord, I'd been close to the Lord before that, but like I said, it was like, it was like, I love you, Lord, and I'm just gonna stay away from all this stuff. And then as you get older, all that stuff starts sparkling, and you start thinking, oh, well, am I living this life because I've never tried any of those things, or am I living this life because it is the best life, and then, you sometimes have to get some bumps and bruises, and then you realize, just how much peace and fulfillment is found at the feet of Jesus and nowhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so good. Hey, the more I'm in my Christian journey too, right? I feel like I understand more that, and I try to explain this to people, that
Mm-hmm.
because so many people feel like it's about rules, and the Bible's rules, and there's all these rules,
Right.
but really it's more a loving father who's just giving
Yes.
warnings, right?
Oh my goodness. Yes. And, you know, I remember someone came to me, a few years ago, or a couple of years ago, and was, asking me, like, they had been a believer. They had, like, been hurt by the church, and I think been hurt by their family even. Everyone that represented the Lord to them, had hurt them, and so they had, basically run from it. And I remember them coming to me, and, they knew where I stood, and that, that I am very bold about my walk with the Lord. And they were like, how do you do that? Like, what is it that, like, why? Like, they had just seen, obviously they had thought that what they had seen from humans was the way that the Lord is, which of course we get that confused sometimes. And I just remember, explaining to them, like, I don't know what you've seen, and I don't know, what's been said to you, or exemplified to you, but the Lord is a loving father. And when I was, testing the boundaries, when I was running, it was never like he's angry with me. It was never, I'm going to punish you, or, he wasn't standing there going 1, 2, 3. Like, it was never like that. It was always, it was like this love of God was so irresistible that is what drew me back. And like I said, I literally felt like he was saying, I miss you, Jillian. I miss our close communion. I miss walking with you in the garden. And that is what drew me back. It was never he's like a fear, like he's so angry with me, I better come back, or like, oh no, am I not going to go to heaven? It was never anything like that. It was purely an irresistible love that I couldn't live without, and I didn't want to live without. And that's my message as a believer and as a songwriter. Like, he just loves you that much. And that's
Yeah.
like, that's all I ever say, on this earth, just to remind people, and to tell them like that's how I sum up my ministry completely as a worship leader, as a songwriter, as just a believer, like he just, like, why would you want to live without being in close communion with someone who just loves you that much? Like,
Yeah.
that's all I want to say. That's my message in a nutshell.
Amen. Come on. That's truth right there. Okay, so your music, after this moment, did you really start pouring into music after sort of that, like of that all becoming
Mm-hmm.
really real and personal to you? Is that when music started to become more, I mean, it was obviously a part of your whole
Right.
life, but when did it sort of blossom into where you're at today?
It definitely was after that time. I would say that after that time, I had led worship like since youth group. Like, I'd always been, a worship leader off and on. But I would say that after that time, I realized like I want to do this in a greater capacity. Like, I want to be not just a singer who's a Christian, but I want to be like, fully, um, whether that's singing in the church or outside the church. I knew that I wanted to be and do all that God had for me in music. And up until, I would say up until that point, I was, I'm classically trained. And so from age 5 on, I was classically trained on piano, violin, viola, and even somewhat vocally. I was, in choirs and things. And so I was definitely, singing a lot of classical music around that time. And I was in my college choir. And so singing a lot of classical pieces. But I had known that even, I would say, I guess right around the start of college, I was like getting interested in working on my voice in a more, because I played guitar already by that point. So, I had started guitar in middle school. And so I loved accompanying myself and playing and stuff. And, I had done a little bit of that already, but there was actually a few friends of mine that encouraged me, like, right around 18 or so. When I was 18, they were like, hey, why don't you start, like covering songs? Like, you could put them online. You could, why don't you just kind of get your feet wet? I hadn't really thought of doing that before. And so, I was just getting my feet wet and trying different styles. I mean, I knew that my voice was low, and I knew that I had, texture in my voice and stuff, but I didn't know kind of where to take it from there. So I'd been kind of working on that somewhat in college, but not like, I didn't know where it would go. And then, yes, after just, I feel like my walk with the Lord being set ablaze, then I felt like there's something bigger. There's something bigger with this. And even though, I still do classical music and I still am somewhat in that world as well, I knew that I wanted to do something in the, singer-songwriter world, and that I wanted to write for the Lord. There was never, like, especially after, everything, there was never a time that I didn't want to write about the Lord, and I didn't know if he wanted to, like, have me be a believer just in mainstream music, but be a light, or if he wanted me to be in Christian music. I wasn't sure. I just knew that I had to do what like, you have to write what you know, and you have to do what you know. And I had to write about the Lord. He saved me. He's my my best friend and my salvation. And so I started. I would say I'd written a few songs as a teenager, especially to work through different times of anxiety and different. That's what I turned to. And, I'd write about the Lord. I'd write about how I was feeling, a whole mixture of things. But when I got to be, right out of college, I felt like I needed to possibly take this to a bigger level. I wasn't sure. It's not something. It's funny with being a singer songwriter and wanting to be in the industry and stuff. It's not something you're just like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make it happen. It's kind of like something, it's a lot of steps, and it's not something you can like make happen on your timeline. And so the Lord was gracious to connect me with certain people to kind of like get me into the Nashville scene. And I'd actually like people had suggested American Idol, things like that, but I don't know why. It never was something that I wanted to, like a vocal competition show. I think they're great and I love watching them, but it was never a route that I wanted to go. And so I was like, Lord, if you want me to, get into this world, like show me how to be in it and open the doors, because you really do. Networking is huge in this industry. You have to have people open doors for you. It's really, you can't just, kind of park yourself on someone's doorstep, and, you need people to help you. You need people that are where you want to be. And the Lord, he graciously just brought people into my life in incredible ways. And it hasn't, obviously it's not an easy road. You have to work really, really hard. People can open the door for you, but you have to work really, really hard, even once you've walked through a door. And so I started just going back and forth to Nashville and writing and just gleaning. Honestly, I feel like the first little bit of it was just learning. It was honestly just learning from veterans of the game and songwriters and producers and just everyone that I worked with, and just gleaning from them. I felt like I was just getting the crumbs from their table and just trying to figure things out and learn even how to write a better song. It's like I wrote as a teenager, but I had to learn how to write in an even better way, an even stronger way. And I feel like I've worked with the most incredible songwriters, and they're so kind and such good teachers in that way. And I feel like they've really strengthened me. But yeah, so I started, just going back and forth to Nashville, and then I started, landing on some songs that I felt were, songs that I wanted to get out in the world. It's very terrifying, when you're like, am I actually going to reveal this to the world? And so deciding on kind of your first song to get out there is very scary. But I have an incredible manager, and he was very encouraging through the process. And he's been doing this for so many years. I could trust his opinion. Like, is this a song that I should, get out there? And I feel like he helped me kind of like nail it down and help me to have some songs that obviously a songwriter, we love all the songs we write, but you have to, not all songs make the cut. There's many songs that are close to your heart that nobody ever hears. And so I feel like with a great team of advisors, you find out like which songs should make the cut and should become available for everyone. So my manager really helped me, and definitely some other wonderful people in my life. And so that's when I started releasing in 2023, and that song was very special to me to get out in the world. So it'll always hold a special place in my heart. So we pray, because it was my very first. So it was the kind of the beginning of this whole journey, is getting that out there.
So now you speak Spanish.
I do. I'm not a perfect Spanish speaker by any stretch, but I do speak Spanish, and I love leading worship in Spanish. And I have one of my songs that I've released, like I put online. I haven't released it officially, but it's online, like a Spanish translation of the chorus. Like I have a verse and a chorus of it. So yes, I do love singing in Spanish when I get the opportunity.
Sorry, I'm just trying to... Oh, that's the wrong one here.
No worries.
Here, so this... And you're playing violin.
Come on, can we sing this together?
Oh, no, this isn't the right one. You know what's funny
That
about...
was Christmas.
That was Christmas. Let's see if I can find it, because I saw it on here. And you know what? I'm now learning with... Instagram is that this is a different one. This is not the one that I was looking for. I wonder if I could find it. That's pretty fluent.
I love singing in Spanish because it has a beautiful rhythm to it. It feels like it's hard to explain, but it feels very exciting when you sing in Spanish, like the way that the R's roll and um, the way that the words like back up against each other. It's obviously it's fun singing in English as well, but there is something special about singing in Spanish and the way it's very rhythmic to me. And that's just, I guess, the musician in me talking. But yes, thankfully, living in Texas, I have a lot of opportunity to sing in Spanish, and so I'm very blessed to live in an area of the country where I get to do that a lot. We have bilingual worship so often in our services, not specifically in like Spanish services, but just in regular services. And we try to throw in a Spanish chorus, and, on at least one of the songs, Spanish verse and chorus. And I think it's really wonderful. And so yeah, I'm a huge fan of bilingual singing. And so I don't know, there might be a release one day on one of my originals, Spanish version. I don't know. We'll see.
Did you learn Spanish because like Texas? Is that what you mean? Like there's opportunities to learn Spanish there? Is that where that came from? Or
I actually took French in school. So I actually was I had lived in Louisiana for like 2.5 years, and everyone took French there. So I actually started with French. And then when I was a little bit older, very young adult, I was in a relationship with a guy whose native language was Spanish. And even though it wasn't like a deal breaker, obviously, like he spoke English very well. But he was like, I would really love it if you learned Spanish as well. I think it would be really cool. And he had, several friends, and for example, his mom didn't speak English at all. And so I actually started learning it to be able to communicate with his family and with some of his friends a little bit more. But, even though the relationship didn't work out, I look back and I'm like, that actually was such a blessing because it gave me a reason to learn. And I, worked really hard on it. And I remember when I could converse with his mom, it made me really happy because she, would be in situations where like everyone would be speaking English, and I would be able to like be there for her, be a friend. And I looked at Spanish as this is a way that I could communicate with people, that maybe would feel isolated in certain situations. If I wasn't there to help them. And I remember being at a restaurant, we were all having dinner, and I remember, and my ex wasn't there. It was I was actually with my parents and with her, and we were at a restaurant getting dinner. And I remember, helping her order her food. And she was asking me questions on the menu, like, well, what is this? And what is that? And I was able to say, well, this is this is that. And then, help her order her food. It was like simple things like that. I was like, that's the power of language. Being able to make someone feel seen and heard and known. And so that was my initial reason learning it. But then I just continued with it. And I remember feeling like this is a blessing, like this was something that I can take away from the relationship. Like this is something that has now been put in my lap, this new thing. And because I learned French prior, I feel like, they're both Romance languages. And so there's a lot of similarities. They're pronounced, the pronunciation is totally different, but there are some similarities in format. And so I feel like that helped me with it. But after that, probably, I don't know, a year after that or something, that's when certain opportunities started coming forward for me to sing in Spanish. And so I went with it. And so I was like, well, I believe the Lord has put that in my life, to learn it. And so, yeah, I started singing in Spanish any chance that I got. And it's funny because they'll be like, you sing in Spanish? They look at my blonde hair and they're just like, so I feel like people don't expect it. And I was just like, you know what? Gringas can sing in Spanish too. So it's really nice. And yeah, having the opportunities that I have in Texas to do so. There are, so many churches that incorporate bilingual worship and just, different opportunities in general where Spanish is so welcomed, and I absolutely love it.
And it's very, very good. So friends, you have to go to Jillian Warman Music on Instagram, because I've just learned something now today that every time you click on it, they mix up all your reels. because
Oh, really?
I had found it and I had made a note of what, how many, like three
Right.
across, how many lines and exactly where it was. Because you start off playing violin and then you sing
Yeah.
it. I can't remember the name of the song. And it was really, really good. And I had it queued up and then it disappeared and I went back in and now it's moved somewhere. And I don't want to get all distracted trying to find
Instagram
it.
is always changing. I
So
feel like you just
brutal.
get used to it a certain way, and then they're like, let's just change everything to make everyone confused all over again. So
And you know what'll happen after this? I'll be surfing it later today and I bet you it'll pop up.
yep, it'll be like,
Right?
there it is.
That one.
That's how it is when you look for something, it's not there, and then when you stop, it's going to be right there.
Yeah. So, friends, I encourage you to see that or check that out on the Instagram. So, your first single, So We Pray, obviously dear to you because your very first one. Where we got here? This one. Let's have a little sample of this.
I know it's been hard times, fighting through long nights. Days turn to weeks and you're finding it hard to believe. Your heart could stop breaking and that someone will save you. Stay through the good and the bad and the in-between. I'm not going anywhere.
Are you almost feeling like you want to sing along with it? Does that happen as an artist?
Oh, I love Weight of Your World. That is one of my, yeah, that's like one of those songs that just, it was fun to record. It was fun to do live.
So can you tell us about this? This song, friends, is called Weight of Your World, available on Spotify and all the platforms, and seems to be well liked by the people.
Yeah, I have a little cousin who's always texting me. She's like, I'm listening to Weight of Your World. I'm like, oh. So I'm like satisfied if my family just loves my song, so I'm good with that. But yes, the song is very special to me. It was funny because I was heading to Nashville for a week of writing, and you never know what you're going to get. You can go and write all week long and end up with nothing. You could end up with one song that works. You can end up with 5 songs that work. Like, you just never know. And I was on the plane and I was like, okay, Lord, just fill me up and help me to write about what you want me to write about. And I always kind of bring, like, I don't know, like if I'm going to be doing 5 writing sessions, I'll have like 5 topics and like things like subtopics and stuff that I'll bring into each write just to get things going. So I had like, a little bit gathered for each write. But I was like, Lord, if you want, I'm always open. I'm like, Lord, if you want me to just deviate from that and do something different, help me to know. And I sat down on the plane to Southwest, open seating. And so I found an aisle seat and there was already a lady in the window seat. And I sat down and she, she smiled at me. She was polite, but there was just something, there was like such a weight on her shoulders. It was so obvious to me, there was in her breathing and her body language. It seemed to me like she was just going through it. And, I could tell that she wanted to be in her own, in her own space kind of thing. And I didn't want to, it's one of those things where you don't want to be like, what's wrong? Because I know I just think about if I were in that space, I probably would want to just be left alone. But I could just feel just the heavy burden, that she was carrying. And I just started praying. I was like, Lord, what do you want me to do? Should I say something? I want to be encouraging. Like, I want to be the light of Christ. Like, what do I do right here? And I felt like the Lord was like, I want you to go into that first writing session. I want you to write a letter to her from me. And not just to her, but anyone carrying what she's carrying. I want you to think of her when you go in and write for her, like write a message to her from me and encourage her. And so I went in and, 2 incredible writers that I love writing with, Jess Cates and Joe Williams. And I went in there and I told them about it. And I was like, I don't know where this is going to lead, but, I had all this plan, I was going to bring it, but I was like, scratch that. I need to deliver a message from God to this lady. Show me how to do that. Help me. Let's partner up. Let's do this. And so we just started, writing it as if, you're writing to a friend. I know it's been hard times, walking through, what you're walking through. Like basically I'm talking to her, I'm talking to anyone going through that. And yeah, the song just began to take shape. And, as I wrote it and as we started like recording the demo and everything, I just started thinking of so many people this song was for, and myself included. I've been in places where I need that song. And, and it's a good day when you write a song that, you need as well. Like, I feel like, if it's a song that you want to listen to as well and that encourages you, that's good. Like, I feel like there's something powerful in that. It's not your art isn't just for other people, it's for you as well. And, yeah, we started writing it, it started taking shape, and I was like, this is special. Like, this is good. Like, I remember showing my manager the demo for the first time, be like, hey, because they like, I think I had the demo by the end of that day or maybe the end of the next day. And so I was like, ready to show my manager, and he listened to it. He was like, I remember the first words out of his mouth. He's like, this is special. And so, we took it to one of my favorite producers and, such an incredible, talented individual, Jeff Pardo. And, he like immediately knew what to do with it. He was like, I got this, and he's just a mastermind when it comes to, the things that he works on. And I just remember walking out of the recording studio after I laid down the vocals. Like, it was, pretty much like all the other musicians that were on it had already recorded on it. So it's kind of like the last thing we did was put the vocals on it. And so I got to kind of hear almost, what you just played, it was almost finished. And I walked out, and my manager had been in the studio as well. And we walked out and we were like, this has got to be the next one. Like, this is, because we had another song planned to come out first. So we were like, this is it. Like, even if we have to push the release date, like, this is what's coming out next. And I remember like waking up the morning after it released, and there was like all these people listening to it, because on the like basically on artist, like the not Spotify itself, but like the artist app through Spotify and through Apple Music and everything, you can see how many people are listening when you first release a song. And so I remember, waking up and being like, well, if my mom is listening and my cousin, we're good. Like, I was like, if it says two, I know who they are, and thank you. And it was just funny because I woke up and there was like all these people listening, and I was like, almost dropped my phone. I was like, wait, what? Because when you're new, you're just thankful, for your music to reach anyone. And I, I do it first and foremost for ministry. So it's never been about numbers for me or, or popularity or anything like that. But I just remember so many people listening to it. And what made me happy wasn't like, oh, look at these numbers, but it was, look what God's doing. Like, this letter that he wrote through me, like, it's getting out, it's reaching people. And that made me so happy. So yes, the song began as a encouragement to one person, but honestly, it was anyone who is in her shoes, which I feel like has literally been every one of us. And if someone says they've never been in that position, they're lying, because I feel like we've all had the weight of the world on our shoulders. And I love how we landed, the writers and I were like, the weight of your world, like, that was stronger for us, because it was like, it's not just having the weight of the world on our shoulders, like, it's the weight of what we're personally going through. It's like we're talking about things being personal, it's like the weight of my world. That's when it gets, it can get really crazy, and, the things that we're personally walking through. And so, yeah, that's how that song came out. I'm very proud of it. And I've had a lot of people say that it's encouraged them, and that's all I intend to do. So.
That's good. I like that. We'll just have a little more here. That is good. Your world, because we're all going through, people go through stuff and feel like they're the only ones. So that's actually
yes,
very appropriate, I would say, for a personal Jesus. Hey.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a new song coming out called Room for You, February 7th, which by the time of this release of this podcast, it'll be out. So friends, go and download that and check that out.
Please.
But Jillian, before we wrap up, just what's in store for you? What are you hoping for this year, for 2025?
Oh, that's, it's such a broad question. There's so many things that I want to see, but if I could narrow it down, I want, just the music that the Lord has given me to continue to reach further, and for lives to be changed through it. I want to write more songs, and, and just continue to invest in what the Lord has given me, and just hone the crafts that, just hone the gifts and the, everything He's put in my heart. I want to, continue to minister through that with worship leading, and also through, through shows, performing my original songs, and honestly just love on people through music. I feel like that's what I do for a living. I'm a music teacher as well, and through being a music teacher and a worship leader and a singer songwriter, I feel like honestly the goal is the same with all of it. I just want to love on people through music. I feel like everyone, the Bible talks about God gives each of us something, whether it's being an encourager, a teacher, whatever your gift is, it could be anything, but it's like when you know what that is, then I feel like it's literally mandatory, for us to lay it down at the feet of Jesus and to do everything that he's called us to do within that. And I feel like music is something he's given me. He's called me to do that. And so, I plan on loving on a lot more people this year. And, hopefully through maybe a lyric in a song, maybe a service where I'm leading worship, maybe even in a class that I'm teaching, that people will come to realize, like what we were talking about earlier, that God just really, really loves us. Like it's really that simple. It's not complicated. Like God just is crazy about us, and we are never going to be more at peace than when we're just sitting at the feet of the one who loves us greater than anyone could ever love us. And so, through music and hopefully some new songs as well that I plan to write this year, I just want to get that word out. If I feel like if I were that guy that's viral on the internet that's always holding up like a sign, on the side of the road, like a picket sign, like that would be like, God really loves us. That's the sign I'd be holding up. So if there was a mental image of like what I'm doing and what I do for a living, that's it right there. I'm just holding up a sign that says, God really, really loves us. And so, yeah, I'm just going to get the word out as much as I can through the music that God gives me.
Amen. That's awesome. Awesome. And definitely a gift to play all those instruments and write and sing in Spanish. Definitely a gift, and a gift that should be shared for people that can't do those things but love to listen and help them channel and release and find the Lord and stuff. So
There's healing in music for sure.
Yeah, we just bless you in that. Did you ever have a conversation with that lady on the airplane?
I didn't. She was, I'm trying to remember if she had headphones on. I think she put on headphones after we took off, and had her eyes closed. And when we got there, I think I just, I had been given my assignment, from the Lord, and I just remember smiling at her and telling her that, like to have, I hope she had a great day, and she told me the same. And the funny thing is, when I didn't think about this till now, but when we landed, it was almost like there was, and I'd been praying for her like the whole flight. I remember when we landed, there was a piece in her eyes that I felt like wasn't there when the flight took off. And so I feel like, what I was called to do in that moment is pray for her and allow her to be, allow her to sit in what she was, going through in a comfortable space without me prying, but at the same time, praying for her. She didn't realize she was going to be sitting next to someone who's going to be knocking on heaven's door the entire flight for her. And I feel like that burden was already being lifted off of her. And I've always wondered, I wonder what it was that she was going through. I wonder what ended up happening. But I know that the Lord put me in her row for a reason. And I hope that I run into her again one day. But like, by the way, there's a song on Spotify for you. You're the inspiration.
Yeah, that's really good. And you know what? It's important to be led by the Spirit, and there's power in prayer. So that's really good. I love flying, and I love chatting with people. And sometimes people will pretend to sleep or.
Oh yeah.
But I'm not.
I've been guilty of that. I'm like, there goes the earphones and the book that I'm not actually reading, but I'm sure. Yeah. I'm funny that way. I'm extremely extroverted, but when I get on a flight, to be honest, I become very introverted. I don't know. It's just something I've noticed about myself.
I just love flying and praying for people and stuff, but
it is nice. No, you can find lots of people to pray for on a flight for sure.
Yeah. And it's good that you led by the Spirit there.
Oh yes.
Well, Jillian, thank you so much for coming on today. It was great to hear your story. Wishing you the best, that your music reaches many. Friends, I encourage you, check out Jillian Warman Music, Instagram, Facebook, all the places. We'll have some links in the description here. You can, well, your song Room for You will be out as this podcast airs, and you have a link too that's called All the Tea. Love that. That'll just get you hooked up with everything and all the places that Jillian is if you click on that link via Instagram. And so, yeah, thank you so much, Jillian.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And I just have one question for you, actually.
Yes.
Just in lines with that lady on the airplane that inspired this song. Should you be in that situation again, or say something similar, but with somebody that's older, like much older, that has grown up in the faith, but in your discussions, you realize through your discussions with them that they haven't sort of found that connection, that personal part of faith, and you share your story, and they ask you how they can find that, what would you say to them?
I would say that the encounter that you can have with Jesus, like the personal, real encounter with Jesus, is too good to live your life never experiencing. And I would dare them to not just say in word, I'm laying stuff down, but truly surrender. Like, I feel like that's what keeps us, from like loving God, but not maybe walking fully in the steps that he has for us, and being completely in line with him. It's surrender. That's the chasm. That's what's in between. And I would dare them to literally pray perhaps the boldest prayer, Lord, do whatever you want. I am yours. Like, if you want me to completely change everything that I'm doing, I'll do it. If you want me to, maybe it's the circle of friends that somebody has that's keeping them from that true walk with the Lord. If you want me to, change my circle of friends, I do it. Basically, surrender and a prayer of surrender. That's what's going to get you from where you're at to maybe where you want to be. And I would also encourage, if the person is willing, fasting, because that is honestly how I feel like how I made that leap. Because when you are fasting, there is a level of surrender that just, you have to have that level of surrender when you're fasting. It breaks you, it gets you out of the way. It takes off the layers that are maybe hindering you. And so yes, just complete surrender and a prayer of surrender. Lord, I trust you. I give it all to you.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Friends, what a great story from Jillian today. And growing up in the church or not, there is that moment, there is that time of surrender. And it's interesting because in the world, surrender means weakness, but in the kingdom, surrender means freedom.